4 men and 4 women have to get rid of their rivals in 80 minutes. Are you interested in how they are going to do it? Then dive into our recap. 8 applicants are preparing for the final stage of the interview process to get their dream job. Alas, only one of them will succeed. Each of the young careerists is terribly nervous and willing to do anything to be hired. It's time for the final test. This is a special exam held in an isolated room equipped with security cameras. Each applicant sits at an individual desk. The only item they have in front of them are pencils and a piece of paper labeled "Candidate" and his or her number. An armed guard enters the room, followed by a strict invigilator in a business suit. He announces the terms of the final assignment. To get the cherished dream job, they have to answer only one question. The candidates have 80 minutes. No laws or rules apply during this time. An applicant will be disqualified if he or she talks to the guard or the invigilator, spoils his or her sheet of paper, or leaves the room. The invigilator asks if anyone has any questions and leaves the room. The countdown begins. Men and women flip over their papers, but they are completely blank. The candidates look around in confusion and surprise. What are they supposed to do now? A young Asian woman takes a pencil in her hand and begins to write an essay explaining the reasons why she deserves the job. At that moment, the guard comes up to her and takes her out of the room. The thing is, she has ruined her sheet. The girl is desperate, but no one listens to her. The other careerists are shocked at what happened. One of them starts talking to the others. It turns out that communication among themselves is not forbidden by the rules. The men and women don't know each other's names, so they decide to use nicknames: white, black, brown, brunette, blonde, dark, and deaf. Because this man doesn't respond to their conversation. White stands up and walks around the room. Candidates are eager to figure out what question they need to answer. It may be written in watermarks or invisible ink. The characters look at their sheets of paper using various lamps. Unfortunately, they can't see anything. Yet there's also ultraviolet and infrared radiation. Anyway, in order to find their sources, they need to turn off the light. Since there is no switch in the room, the most vigorous careerists decide to cause an emergency and smash all the lamps in the room with their chairs. At first, it gets completely dark, but then the backup power is turned on. Using the UV lamp, the candidates decide to check their paper one more time, but the results remain unchanged. And what about infrared? The girl breaks a few more lamps with the heels of her shoes, and the color of the room changes from blue to red. The applicants check their worksheets again, but nothing has changed. They have only 1 hour left. White picks up the sheet of paper left by the disqualified woman and shades it with a pencil. This doesn't yield any results either. What about the liquid? White tears up the woman's sheet and hands up the pieces to the other candidates, asking to make them wet. Meanwhile, he himself unzips the fly. What? It's also a liquid, even though it would be easier to use saliva. In any case, no hidden symbols appear on the paper. Deaf doesn't participate in the general discussion. This man is French. He keeps repeating the phrase, "Can you see it in there?" and occasionally begins to cry. Brown notices that all the people in the room have been elected for a reason. 4 men and 4 women. They are representative of different races and cultural groups. Moreover, they have different personalities and professional skills. The selection was made for a reason. Could this be some kind of a strange experiment? But what's the purpose? The candidates suddenly realize that they barely know anything about the company they intend to work in. The only one who has at least some information is Dark. It turns out that this corporation works in the healthcare industry and focuses on life extension. Considering the fact that the world is facing an unknown virus pandemic, everyone dreams of getting remedy for health and longevity. This drug is the only reason why Brunette needs to join the company. She needs to cure her best friend. The woman approaches the guard and searches his pockets. The only thing in there is a lighter. The candidates realize that this room resembles a huge dark room. Maybe they should develop the signs on paper, like a photographic film. Using a lighter and a sheet of paper, Brunette activates the fire alarm. Water rains down the ceiling, but it doesn't work well. Not a single symbol appears on the paper. Brunette notices that her sheet of paper is missing. It turns out that White gave her not the agent's paper to set the alarm, but her own. This is a violation of the rules, so the menacing guard immediately approaches the woman. Brunette screams and swears, but the guard still forces her to leave the room. Black is furious. It was a very despicable act. At that point, people realize that the room reacts to their words. For example, they can turn on the lights using voice commands. Death is crying again. Through trickery and manipulation, White forces him to tear up his paper and put it in his mouth. Obviously, the distressed man is immediately escorted out by the guard. On his way out, Death drops his glasses. There are only 5 candidates left in the room now. White is very pleased with himself. He's gotten rid of 2 rivals. Black doesn't like this insolent behavior, so he punches White in the face. The man faints and the other candidates tie him to a chair so he doesn't disturb anyone else. In addition, they shove his own sock into the insolent man's mouth. Well, he won't be able to talk so much now. Sometime later, White comes to his senses. After a little thought, the others take the sock out of his mouth. The man asks them to give him a pill. The thing is that he is infected with the very disease for which the corporation is developing a cure. If the sick person doesn't take the medicine in time, he will have a seizure, suffer convulsions, and fall into a coma. The consequences will be dreadful. White loses consciousness again. The other candidates don't believe his words. They decide to wait for the seizure to check out whether he tells the truth or not. Brown comes to the conclusion that Dark is the company's secret observer. She knows too much about the corporation. Besides, she's well versed in psychology. Blonde reminds everyone that they need to trust each other, otherwise all of them will lose. Nevertheless, Brown has other plans. He ties Dark to a chair and forces her to tell him the whole truth. Then the woman confesses that she indeed works for the company. She wanted a promotion and that's why she ended up here. Brown still doesn't believe her. He is ready to torture Dark, but then he spots some red marks on her thigh. Looks like the girl has a very tough life. Brown hurts Dark and pushes Black away as he stands up for her. He is about to hurt the girl really badly, but gives up at the very last moment. It looks like Dark is indeed telling the truth. Blonde hands her a band-aid. A few minutes later, White has a seizure. This man didn't lie to them either. So where is his pill? Apparently, one of the candidates stole it. The men and women search each other. Dark finds the capsule under Brown's desk. The man won't let her save White. They squabble and drop the pill into the water drain. Unfortunately, it's covered with a grate. Dark becomes desperate as White gets worse. She looks into the camera and yells that one of the candidates need help. This is a violation of the rules, so Dark is disqualified. Despite the panic, Blonde uses her hairpin to retrieve the pill from under the grate. She saves White. The man regains consciousness. Blonde unties him. White is very aggressive. He rips off his tie and declares that this is no specific question. The question is the test itself. There must be only one candidate left. White rushes to the guard to seize his gun, but Black manages to stop him and takes the pistol away. The men have another argument. A fight breaks out, during which White eventually gets the gun. He threatens the other candidates and forces them to leave the room. Brown is the first to leave. He is followed by Black. The man doesn't want to surrender. He is also sick and needs the medicine. Blonde decides to quit instead of him. Standing by the door, she activates the voice command, "Lights out." Black attacks White in the darkness. Several shots are fired. White turns the light on. Black is wounded. He falls to the floor and closes his eyes. White notices that Blonde is standing around the corner in the adjoining room, but the toe of her shoe is still inside. He is ready to shoot her foot. An alarm beeps. The time for the exam is up. White waits for the invigilator, but he doesn't show up. At this point, the man shouts that he passed the test and won. The guard approaches him, and a timer on his wristwatch It turns out that the time is not up yet. Before leaving the room, Death pressed a button on the clock and accelerated the countdown. White grabs the gun, but there are no more bullets in it. The man has violated the terms, so now the guards escort him out of the room. Blonde is the only candidate left. She returns to the room and picks up the glasses that Death dropped. Using them, the woman finds the inscription Question 1 on the sheet. She recalls that before leaving, the invigilator asked any questions. Death walks into the room. The man appears to be the CEO of the corporation. Blonde walks up to Death, holds out his glasses, and replies, "No questions." The invigilator also enters the room. However, Blonde doesn't want to work for the company after all she's been through. She doesn't like the fact that people had to risk their lives for the job. Then the invigilator asks Blonde to take a closer look at Black. The thing is, the man is actually alive. Instead of bullets, the gun was loaded with capsules containing a medicine that cured the man's life-threatening disease. The invigilator explains that the production of this drug is a very dangerous and risky process. That's why they were looking for an employee who could work under the most extreme conditions. And they found such a person. Then Blonde shakes Dev's hand and accepts his offer.